Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Startup Garage podcast, your source for all things startups. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Tom Lark on the line, and he's CEO over at Sereno Medical. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to get into the technology that you're using over at Sereno called Sereno Sentinel. So we're going to get into the device. But before we go too far into that, let's start with what you're doing over at Sereno Medical. I mean, tell us a little bit more about the purpose of the company, please.
Sure. So we are basically trying to automate the very last metric that is measured manually in the intensive care unit. The intensive care unit is the one that you see on the news with all the very, very sick people with respirators. Mm-hmm. We are basically automating this thing that the nurse would basically have to show up at the bedside and measure kidney function by way of measuring urine output. And our device is aimed at monitoring urine outputs in a very precise, very accurate, and high-resolution way that gives a lot more information for a lot less workload for the nurses.
And I don't want to assume that everybody listening understands the problem of what that means for it not to be so for example, some of the things that you're solving is it's hand-free, it's low cost, it's a non-invasive device. I mean, I don't want to assume that everybody understands a lot of the problem that you're solving, which is really a significant problem. Can you go a little bit more into that, please?
Sure. So a very high percentage of ICU patients sadly develop in the process of the hospitalization, they develop a condition called AKI, acute kidney injury. It's a type of condition or a disease that is impossible to reverse. And anyone who would have AKI would probably live his rest of his life, her life, with some sort of kidney damage. Mm. And in order to detect it early enough, the nurses would probably need to monitor the byproduct of kidney function, which is urine production. Mm-hmm. And with the accurate assessment of urine production, rates and amounts, the nursing staff can detect the problem early enough, hopefully change a thing or two in the patient's blood pressure, fluid management, and so on, and completely avoid the issues and damages associated with AKI.
Wow, that's amazing. And now, and at the time of this recording, so depending when somebody's listening to this is for the listeners, we're recording this in April of 2020, so we're in the middle of the whole COVID pandemic and all of that. So what can this mean? What could this technology mean also for, let's say, quarantine patients or patients that are, kind of not in your ICU unit?
Patients who are in the ICU unit require urine output monitoring as a standard procedure everywhere, anywhere in the world, at all times. Patients who contract COVID-19 are at a much higher risk of showing up at the ICU. And to date, there are, many, many hundreds of thousands of patients in the world. 5% up to 10% of these patients reach the ICU, or actually the diagnosed cases reach the ICU. The ICUs today are at capacity, some are way beyond capacity, and anything that saves the workload from the nursing staff is in very high demand. And obviously, anything that prevents the nursing staff and save them both time and also contact with the patients is in high demand. So we are able to both reduce the exposure of the staff because it's a zero workload, zero contact device, and also give 100-fold more information about the patient's kidney function without having anyone near the patient unless it's obviously necessary.
Yeah, I was thinking that and again, I can't see a time. I mean, it's always the AKI issue. I mean, that's not new, obviously. But that being said, it's always when you can save nurses more time, when you can save them more, especially when you have things like what's going on right now. It just becomes obvious. Like to me, this is almost like the low hanging fruit. Like this is the one that's just kind of like obvious. Like hospitals, ICU units, they need it, right? So you don't. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. Let's talk a little bit more about cost and how all of that will work. So what I mean by is not necessarily the pricing on the units, but where would you say the cost benefit would be for hospitals and IT units that do adopt this technology?
Absolutely. AKI is a very costly condition on top of it being deadly and very painful to the patient and his well-being. Any case of AKI in the U.S. healthcare system would cost the hospital and not the insurance, not the patient. It costs the hospital $7,000 per case per event.
Wow.
And at least 30% of that is avoidable. And this adds up to a massive amount of money. It adds up to about $40 billion of yearly damages.
Say that one more time, please. Say that one more time, Tom. That just hurt my heart.
$40 billion of avoidable damage to the healthcare system.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's the avoidable amount. That's only taking into consideration the events that take place in the hospital and are completely avoidable by automated monitoring and acting on the information in time. And the economics are fairly simple. In the level of a single hospital with 20 beds, ICU, the hospital would save about $1 million a year by using an automated system.
Wow. Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and I'm still a little quiet over here and shocked at this billion with a B dollar number. No, I get it completely. So Tom, that being said, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on Sereno Medical, I mean, what's the best way for them to follow up? What's the best way for them to learn more about the Sentinel device?
Well, we are, I think it's obvious, a teeny tiny startup based in Israel. And I would absolutely love anyone to reach out to me personally. You can find me online, Tomer Lark, or you can find our website, Sereno Medical, that is SERENNO Medical, and reach out for me. I would absolutely respond to everyone who will email me and find me online.
Fantastic. Well, Tom, been great having you on the show today. Really appreciate you coming on and telling us more about the great work you're doing over at Sereno Medical to really help patients, to help hospitals. I mean, to save, huge cost savings, all kinds of things. So a lot of wins in the scenario that you're proposing, and of course the patients. I mean, who don't have to go through, the preventable. That number you gave is pretty large. So 30% that may be preventable. A lot of people in pain out there that wouldn't be in pain had they had this device and didn't have to kind of go through these things by using a system that is pretty much outdated right now. So thank you for that. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. If you're listening to this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Startup Garage, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. I mean, love to know what kind of projects and businesses you're working on. And Tom, thanks again for coming on the show.